What's going on, everybody? Thank you for checking out another new episode of Life's a Bit with Larry Mullins. Today's guest is Raanan Hershberg. He is a New York-based comedian. He has appeared on The Late Late Show with James Corden and Comedy Central, and he just recently released a brand new album titled Downhill Ever Since. It's available wherever you can download, purchase, or stream your music. It's a great album. Raanan is incredibly hilarious. We had a great chat. We talk about everything from outdoor comedy, recording his album. We even talked about serial killers. Yeah, serial killers. It was a well-rounded conversation. Hope I get the chance to talk to him again. Do me a favor and follow him on all social media at Raanan Comedy. It's at Raanan Comedy. Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, Raanan Hershberg. What's up, man? How's it going?
Good. How are you?
Good. I appreciate you doing this.
Yeah, no problem.
I like to start off by telling the story of like how I discovered you. Basically, this sounds crazy, but like I heard your name dropped on Joe and Mark's podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody they have mentioned, I've checked out and I've fallen in love with. And I actually just listened to your new album last night and I loved it.
Oh, thank you.
I just wanted to say that. I'm big into music too, and I tend to find like the indie bands and indie artists are better than like the mainstream.
Uh-huh.
Or there's a lot of indie acts that are better than mainstream artists.
Uh-huh.
And I found that that's the same case with comedy as well.
What a diplomatic way of saying I'm not successful. No, I'm joking.
No,
I'm joking. You're like, I love indie. No, I'm joking. I'm kidding. Well, thank you. That you listened to Downhill ever since?
Yes.
Awesome. Well, thank you. I appreciate it. I think that you're like the 11th listener or something.
I've never been called diplomatic, though. Should I take this as a compliment? Or I was talking to somebody else about this, and like, I'm not a pro. I just love listening to the stuff and watching the stuff. But growing up, the bigger guys like Carlin and Andrew Dice Clay, guys like that. And then just, you think the pandemic for this too, but I just started kind of like when you're looking up new artists, like listeners of this person also liked this person.
Right.
And I just kind of went down like a Instagram, YouTube wormhole, and I'm like, man, like all of these, they should be way bigger than they are.
Oh, well, thank you. Yeah, I mean, I appreciate it. I'm a little biased, but I agree with you. But at the same time, it is what it is. I mean, I'm happy when people listen to the album, and everything gets forgotten anyway at the end of the day. So whatever, but I appreciate you listening to it. That's awesome.
I've never really, like I said, in terms of like the pandemic, I was never really that into comedy before, but I think it's just, everybody just needs a good laugh now, I guess. And I'm always like spending hours like looking up different things to get into, and then at night I'm like watching some like dark twisted movie, and it's like they're like complete polar opposites, but like I like to. It's just
right.
It's almost for like a long time. I kind of like I didn't actually like forget how to laugh, but I was like, man, like there's just so many funny things that I never even knew existed. It's crazy.
Right. Yeah. No. I mean, people always need to laugh and forget about shit, or be reminded of horrible shit, but laughing while doing it, which is, the comedy I like the most. But yeah, it's a very appropriately titled album because I called it Downhill Ever Since. And then the pandemic happened not too soon after that. So I'm not saying I'm a prophet, but it's a very appropriately titled album.
You recorded that right before everything shut down?
Well, actually, no. I recorded it. I think it came out. It took a while to come out. I think it came out like maybe a month before things fell apart. I recorded in the summer, and then I think it came out like maybe in January. So I guess, a couple months later is when the pandemic happened.
Everything that's on the album, was that recorded like over one show, or was it like multiple performances that you took chunks from each one, or?
So I recorded it. A lot of people record it differently. Some people go on the road and do it at a club on the road. And when you do it on the road, you have like maybe 4 shows you can record from. I wanted to do it at New York Comedy Club in New York. Because I just love that club, and the way they set it up, they let comedians record on Sunday, so you have 2 shows in which you can get it from. So I recorded a show at I think 7 and then 9:30, and then the album is, I guess, essentially a mix of both of those. But really, the first show was the one where I kind of got it all. The first show was really. The first show was definitely clearly the best show. The second show was a lot of people who didn't even know it was an album recording, and it was a little weirder. Though a lot of the second show was good because it had a lot of riffs. Because the first show was so good, I didn't really riff that much. The audience was so hot, I just kind of did the material. But on the second show, the audience was kind of weird, and I went into some pretty fun riffs that I got to then put. So I basically kind of combined the riffs of the second recording with kind of mostly the material from the first. So it was mostly I guess maybe 80-20, 80% being the first album.
So I guess is it just kind of like a vibe type thing? Like in the first show, more people knew what was going on and they were more into it, or?
Well, the first show was sold out, which definitely helped, I think. I mean, the second show wasn't empty, but it wasn't fully sold out. The first show was sold out, and then I think it was half people coming to see me and then half people just there at the club. But it felt more like it was, I guess, I don't know. It felt more like an important show. And then the second show was just a lot of people who didn't even realize it was an album recording, because she actually, I think she didn't promote the second show as an album recording to try to get more people there. Mm-hmm. But so it was just a little weirder. They were a little jaded. They were a little dead. But it ended up being it ended up being good, because ironically, the first show I had a really good response, but I had way more fun on the second show, because the second show they were weird, and I got to riff and I got to make fun of them for sucking, and I actually had more fun. I actually had way more fun on the second show. But the second show led to some really that whole riff about, I don't know, that whole riff about Freddy Krueger with that girl.
Yeah.
Who said her favorite serial killer. That was from the second show, and I thought that was a really fun riff. I was excited to be able to.
I can't imagine that's gotta. I mean, I don't know that I could, make fun of somebody without feeling awkward, but I guess you're in the moment, you know what you're doing, and they should at least know you're joking. I would.
Well, yeah. I mean, I wasn't, I wasn't that mean to her.
going into them that hard.
Yeah, but it was clearly it was clearly a fun and games, But when I told her to get the fuck out, I obviously was joking, For those who have not heard my album, which I assume is anyone listening to this, at one point I asked people who their favorite serial killer is, and a girl who's kind of younger said Freddy Krueger, and I just lose it because I'm just appalled that someone would use a fictional character for a serial killer, you know. But it was a fun. I was very happy with the album.
Kind of that's the first person that came in your mind was Freddy Krueger. Really?
Yeah.
Oh, I've grown up through some. I don't know. The big serial killer I think ever. I don't know. I was really. I was probably, I guess, in maybe 3rd or 4th grade when the whole Jeffrey Dahmer thing was going down.
The Jeffrey Dahmer craze, yeah.
Yeah, that was. I vaguely remember seeing his trial on TV when I was little.
Oh, really?
I was like, oh wow. And then
how old are you?
I'm 38.
Yeah, I'm 36. I guess I vaguely remember too, but
yeah, I mean, we weren't. I mean, it was grade school. I just remember, and I just remember he ate a bunch of people and then he was stabbed in prison with a broomstick. So.
Yeah, well, it was shoved up his ass.
Oh, it was shoved up his ass.
Yes, and then he was, I believe it was a weight he was beaten on the head with.
Yeah, maybe that was because I was younger. Maybe that detail was left out. I'm sure the adults knew, but
yeah, I mean, I didn't know at the time, but I'm a bit of a aficionado, so I was into serial killers before everyone was into it. I was into serial killers back when it was kind of creepy to be into serial killers. And then it got kind of more normalized.
I love watching like documentaries because it's just fascinating.
Yeah,
It's
it's
not like how can like somebody like I don't know, like Ted Bundy appear to be so like charismatic and just like a normal guy to the women, then just like a switch just like flips and he just
I'm forever interested in the I think my fascination with serial killers for the most part deals with people's ability to compartmentalize and the interesting way of someone having a cover, like, if they have a family, and then the question of like, can you actually love people and be a serial killer? Can you actually, like, the question of, can you have empathy? Are they just fake the whole time? Or can people literally have empathy for some people and treat other people just like objects? And it's a mystery, because you don't know what they're feeling, and they might not know it either. But it's a mystery I'm interested in.
yeah. There was that. Did you see that Netflix movie with Zac Efron where he played Ted Bundy?
I watched a little of it. I
It,
I yeah, I know the case pretty well, and I don't know. I found it a little. I don't know. I wasn't crazy about it. I felt like
well, just going back to like what you're how can they empathizing and stuff. Like in the movie, they showed like this, I guess, girlfriend he was with long term,
yeah.
at least in the movie, and he was hiding it from her and she had no idea. Then he gets arrested at the end. Well, I mean, he gets arrested and escapes like several times, but at the very end, and I think he like finally confesses to her and she's like blown away or something. Like,
Well, that's the other question too. I always have is like, so many people are like, I had no idea, and you have to wonder, was it really hard to tell, or are people so vapid they can't realize when someone else is vapid? I don't know. I'd
yeah,
like to think I could tell if something's off. Uh, but I might not get the opportunity. But yeah, that movie is weird because they didn't even show any of the crimes. So
yeah,
if you
no, I was surprised. Like,
if you didn't know anything about Ted Bundy and you were watching that, you'd be like, "Is this a rom com? Is this a movie about like a? Is this a rom com about someone who's been accused wrongfully of crimes? Like, it's just such a bizarre angle to
yeah,
take it from."
when I was because my sister likes that stuff too, and I was like, yeah, it was more so like just about his relationship with his girlfriend and her kid.
It's really,
Like it,
I found it distasteful. I mean, with serial killers, there's always that thing where you like the victims get overshadowed,
yeah,
which is distasteful a lot, but it's natural. But I feel like they took it to a whole other level where the victims are so not in the story that you're like, if you didn't know the case, you'd be like, is he innocent? I just feel like to the point where because he's a serial killer, we can now make a movie about. It looked like I was like for a second, it looked like I was someone in a documentary talking about it who didn't want to be revealed
with the distorted voice,
yeah.
talking about like a drug deal or something.
Right. But like for the movie for because he's a serial killer, they make a whole movie just about him and his relationship. It just seemed, I don't know, that seemed kind of inappropriate, I thought.
I would have rather seen a movie like where it shows him killing. Like as disturbing as it would have been, I would have preferred that.
I mean, if you're gonna make a movie about him, well,
Yeah.
let's be honest. That's the part that's fascinating about him. I mean, like,
Show a
if
little bit about his relationship, but I
yeah,
mean most of it.
it was bizarrely like taking like serial killer obsession to a level where you're like, oh, you think he's actually an interesting, like, it's just, I don't know, it's a bizarre thing. I found
Yeah.
it very bizarre.
It'd be
At
like,
least hint at it or something. I don't know.
yeah, like I mean, I would have watched a movie about him if like, Quentin Tarantino did a movie about him or something and it was just like ultra bloody or something.
Right. Yeah, it's hard to do one about him because he is, out of all the serial killers, I think he's probably one of the least empathetic. I mean, most of them are not empathetic, but like I mean, Jeffrey Dahmer, I think you could feel bad for in many ways, but Ted Bundy is just such a narcissistic, like, piece of shit. He just didn't really have any redeemable qualities.
I mean, he was generally for the most part, he was like a just regular run of the mill like successful guy, wasn't he? Like he didn't have like a troubled
Mm.
childhood or anything or
Nah, it's debatable. I think he probably did have an abusive I think it was father, grandfather, that he didn't talk about much. I think he tried to make his family look like it was kind of Norman Rockwellian or whatever. But I think he did have probably some trauma he just never brought up.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, he's yeah. I don't know. Yeah, I find them fascinating. I read a whole book on the daughter of the BTK killer, and
Oh wow.
that I found really fascinating because he was a family man.
Mm-hmm.
So I was really I'm so interested in reading books from other people in their life to see what their perspective was. And I mean, the book was terribly written, and she's like this woman who's found God and just talks about God all the time. It's just really kind of annoying and badly written. But within that, the story is so fascinating because she was his daughter, and he was like a kind of normal seeming family man, and she just talked about all her experiences growing up with him. And it's just like quite fascinating.
That yeah, there was geez, we went off on a serial killer tangent. That's totally fine because I love talking about this stuff. That there's a show, I don't even know if they're going to do a third season. Did you ever watch the show called Mind Hunters on Netflix?
Yeah.
I think that's a pretty good show. I mean, I don't know how much. I mean, I know the main characters I think are fictionalized, but they like how they have the interviews with the actual serial killers.
Yeah, no, that's a pretty dead on Ed Kemper. Another person I was way into, and now I'm like a hipster, but with Ed Kemper. I was way into Ed Kemper because now I feel like everyone's into him because of Mindhunter. But I was like, I thought he was always one of the more fascinating serial killers because he's the closest to a movie. Most serial killers are kind of banal, and some of them are kind of dumb. And a lot of them are just not that interesting at all. But he was that one rare exception where it was like a movie-like version of a serial killer in the sense that he was kind of a genius IQ, and he could really, like Hannibal Lecter, he could really articulate his issues and was very aware of them.
Like very educated.
And that's very rare. Most of them, like, Gary Ridgway was like, fucking an idiot and could, just like,
I didn't know much about him. When I started watching the show, I had heard the name Ed Kemper. I'd heard the name before. I just didn't. And when they compared the actor with the actual pictures, I was like, oh, wow. Like,
I mean, he was an inspiration for Hannibal Lecter. I mean, I think so. Well, I know Ted Bundy was, but like, because Ted Bundy offered to try to help find the Green River Killer, and that was like Thomas Harris's inspiration to have Hannibal Lecter help them find Buffalo Bill. But like Ed Kemper really is like kind of like a Hannibal Lecter like character. And he was very fucked up, but also kind of like funny. I mean, this is very fucked up, but he said, his mother was really abusive to him, and he eventually killed her because he realized like the only way to stop killing people, he had to go to the source and kill his mother. So he killed his mother. And he said he cut out her larynx and put it into the garbage disposal because, he thought it was appropriate because she's always nagging him. Mm-hmm. But then the garbage disposal shot out the larynx. And he was like, it's so appropriate. Even when she's dead, she won't shut the fuck up. Which, is disturbing, but joke structurally, it's like a good joke. He was, I mean, very disturbing, but he had like some good joke structure. Like he's the one who had the line, sometimes whenever I see a woman, part of me wants to like take her out and wine her and dine her. And another part of me wants to see what her head would look like on a stick, which is very fucked up. Yeah. But joke structurally, very sound.
Yeah, that's now was his mom actually the last person he killed? Like, is that, or did he continue
his mom
after?
And his mom's friend. No, he turned himself in after that. Yeah.
Literally him going to the source, like that was the end of his.
Yeah, because she used to like lock him in the basement in like a little small room in the basement and treat him kind of like an animal, Yeah, but
yeah, I could talk about this longer than I thought I could. It's when you told me you were like so into it, I was like, oh, cool, hey, I've never really like I know people who are like fascinated with the stuff, but like you've read books and all that. I've only just watched some documentaries, and that's about it.
Oh yeah. I've read a decent amount of books on serial killers. Yeah. I don't find I'm crazy when people don't find it interesting. I'm like, how do you not find that interesting? You know?
Yeah, like it's it's weird. Like, and some people are grossed out by certain things, and other, I guess desensitized. I don't know exactly what I'm trying to say, but like I'll watch like just some really messed up stuff, and then like it could be like a movie, and my mom could be watching some just nasty crap, like people like removing pimples or whatever, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, ew, that's disgusting. She's like, well, yeah. I'm like, yeah, but what I'm watching is a movie. Like that's
Right.
like that's real. Like, but I
Right. Right. Right.
I did actually hear somewhere else that he was the inspiration for Hannibal Lecter. I think I may have read it online in an article somewhere when the show came out.
Yeah.
And I guess, that's where a lot of people like learned about him, because I think wasn't he introduced like really early in the series, like the first episode or something, or like early on?
Yeah. Yeah. He's like the focal point. He's like the guy who, not the focal point, but he's their like guide into that world.
And the one
Um,
agent like became obsessed with him.
yeah.
And he has like the
And
panic attack when he hugs him.
yeah. And it's, like I said, it's very upsetting because I was such a big fan of him. And I feel like I feel like I've given him up to everyone. Everyone knows him now, you know? Not a fan. Fan's the wrong word. Such a interested party to him, whatever.
Switching gears, like how, because at least I'm in Virginia now. I was going to ask you, what's like the pandemic situation like in New York now? Because like I know they're like reintroducing like restrictions and all that, and or
Uh,
at least around here they are. They're kind of cutting back down on the capacity, and
yeah, it's the numbers are going up. They actually, I thought they were actually going to shut everything down, but they haven't. They put curfew to like bars and like indoor places have to close by 10 p.m. But they're still actually mostly open. Um, Obviously, because of winter, everything's just like you're not people aren't going out as much. But no, they actually haven't shut down the city. I assume they were gonna. I assume they were waiting until after Thanksgiving, but I think they're trying to just focus on certain areas and like
mhm.
kind of like close down those areas, called them micro clusters, and try to not close down the entire city because I don't know if they can. I don't know. Maybe they think they can't economically afford to do that, or it'll just destroy the restaurants and stuff.
Yeah.
Though it's very fucked up because whatever. I mean, it's very easy to like get mad at you know every politician right now. I mean, obviously some you have a right to
Yeah.
like obviously Trump did absolutely nothing and tried to get as many people killed as possible. But it's very easy to get so angry at Cuomo or De Blasio. But it is kind of you're between a rock and a hard place. But they did end up they ended up shutting down the schools, but keeping bars and restaurants open, which is very upsetting because the schools are probably not there are not a big super spreader schools. Kids do not spread it the same way adults do, and it spreads way more at bars and restaurants. And also because our country's so fucked up, so many kids depend on school for free lunches if they're poor, or just a safe space from families that sometimes can be abusive. So it's really fucking over a lot of poor children by closing down the schools, and also they don't have to, they didn't have to, but I think they're trying to reopen them now.
I asked because like I live in Virginia, and I've this sounds like nuts, but like I've been seeing like on Instagram and everything, like I'd love to come to one of these really cool looking outdoor comedy shows in New York. Like I don't know, they look cool, like the ones on
Yeah.
rooftops, like that just seems like a cool setting. Like what are those
uh,
like? I
well,
mean,
I think you missed the boat. I think they're coming to an end now because it's so cold, but they were
oh yeah,
great.
definitely.
I had a great time on them. I'm very loud, as you know, for my album. I'm very loud, and so if you're very loud, you tend to do well at the outdoor shows. So I was really flourishing in the outdoor world. It's perfect for loud comics.
Because I've the two different settings, like when I went to like at least 10 years ago, there's a Funny Bone in Richmond, Virginia. I went there for my birthday. I don't remember who I saw. I was pretty trashed at the time. And I just went recently at the end of September to this place called the Arlington Draft House. And it was like a kind of like a theater type setting. And it was indoors, but it was like there were groups of chairs like in twos, like spread apart. I felt it was done responsibly, but I'm like, man, I really want to like, it's just a shame I couldn't go to New York when like the clubs were actually open.
Right.
And I could experience that myself.
Yeah, Arlington's been open this whole time, right?
Yeah.
I know like Sarah Tolomash was there. Yeah, so well, I haven't really done much indoor. Though, except I did do the Cellar a bunch. They were kind of doing shows indoor with like limited capacity. But honestly, I felt a little weird doing it, though they were pretty fun. Yeah, it was mostly outdoor stuff.
Yeah, like I because now I'm looking and I'm seeing is gradually like more and more layers, or people are putting on more and more layers because, like you said, it's getting cold. And it's like weather here's been crazy. Like 2 days ago, it was like a high of like 70, but it still gets into like the 30s at night. And like today, the high is like 45.
Yeah, it's erratic. Yeah.
And I have killer allergy issues to begin with. Like I have to take allergy medication every day, and I just get these really bad sneeze attacks and my sinuses and
yeah. So I don't know what's going to happen. I mean, I think comedy is going to probably be hibernating for the winter, you know? So, I mean, you know, except for Zoom stuff, which I also do, you know?
That's cool. I got tickets for one of those one time, and that was interesting. I mean, I enjoyed it, you know.
What'd you get tickets for? Or
it was man, when was it? I want to say it was in August.
Was it a comedy show?
Yeah.
On Zoom?
Yeah.
Who was it? Mark
Normand, Caitlin Polifo, and a few others. And I was like, well, let me see what this Zoom comedy thing is, because I've heard them all talking about it. I'm like, screw it, let me buy tickets.
Was it enjoyable?
You know, the host was like, because everybody that it was just watching it were like muting themselves, and she's like, well, some of you guys have to unmute. So I was the first person to unmute myself.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, screw it, I'm trying to laugh, you know, like I'm not gonna be like, I don't want anybody to hear me.
That's the annoying thing about Zoom. People don't want to unmute, and then you're like you have to like beg them to unmute. It's like it's like, you know, and I just tell them, I'm like, if you're muted and you laugh, you're a fucking asshole. Because you're not, that laugh should be for me, for my damaged ego. That's the contract. I try to make you laugh, and then you validate my damaged ego that has brought me to such a desperate situation. But if you're just gonna laugh but not let me hear it, then this is no longer a transaction, you know?
Yeah, like that's the whole point you're doing it.
Yeah. It's like it's like if you're having sex and you're orgasming, but you're pretending like you're not orgasming, like you're trying to act like you're not. That's what it feels like, you know? You're like, you're not faking an orgasm. You're faking you're faking not having an orgasm.
Yeah, I know. I knew you were going to go somewhere sexual with that, because I was already going there in my head. I'm like, wait, how can I relate that to
Yeah. So
yeah, I'm like, no, I'm like, scrub, like, I don't care.
But then you get a bunch of people on mute, and then there's always some fucking old person on there who has like their TV in the background. So you're like, all right, every fucking mute now, and it's the whole like you got to make sure like you want people on mute, but you also, if everyone unmutes, it's like chaos, you know?
This is kind of like out of order, but like I really love the artwork, and I wanted to ask you about the artwork. Do you have like an artist friend, or did you do that?
First of all, that question is so not in order, and you've really just joking. I'm joking.
That's not being diplomatic, is it?
I'm joking. I don't know the order. I don't know what an order is for questions. But the artwork is by a wonderful artist and comedian named Caitlin Cook, and she's like fantastic, and she's done artwork for me a bunch. She's also does like really funny songs. She's like I don't know, parody singer is not the right word because they're like original songs, but really funny songs. And yeah, she's a great artist. Yeah, and she actually with the album cover. So my idea originally was So that was actually a drawing she did for when I was promoting the recording.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just like a poster to like have people come to the album recording. And then once the album was made, I was looking for someone to design the album cover. And my idea in my head was, since I called it Downhill Ever Since, I wanted to have a thing where, you know, I'm Jewish, and I want to have a thing where the image, like on your bar mitzvah, I don't know if you've ever been to bar mitzvah, but like kind of like a Jewish wedding, they pick you up in a chair and kind of throw you up in a chair, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And I was like a pretty fat kid. I mean, I'm still kind of fat, but I was like pretty fat kid. And I wanted an image of me on a chair on my bar mitzvah being thrown up in the air, but like I'm fat, so you feel like it looks like I'm about to come crashing down because I'm so fat and they can't lift me. So that was like the very elaborate image. And it made sense in my head because I have a joke about my bar mitzvah. And I say like my bar mitzvah speech was, did so well. It was like, it's been downhill ever since. So that was like the title anyway. So I really wanted this drawing of me being held in a chair on my bar mitzvah looking like a crash. And then I paid someone, or the record company paid someone who I liked to do a drawing, but it didn't look right. Like as a kid, he didn't like. He's kind of more of a caricaturist, and it looked like the cover of like a children's book, kind of, you know. And then I got someone else to do a drawing, and it still didn't work. And eventually, what I realized was, it doesn't read being a kid like in a drawing. It's hard to read someone being a kid. It didn't look like me. And what I really would have needed for that was an actual picture of me as a bar mitzvah kid being held up in a chair. Mm-hmm. And I didn't realize that. I had to spend a decent amount of money. So then I was just like, fuck it, I'll just use a picture from the recording. You know, this is probably the most boring story ever.
No, it's not.
As I'm saying it, I'm like, God damn it, but yeah, so that's the story of like, that's the behind the scenes of the album cover.
Well, I like to like a lot of the behind the scenes question stuff. Like this, it's all fascinating.
All right, well,
honestly,
I just ended up using the image of me that she drew for the album recording because I couldn't get it right, you know. So for anyone doing an album recording, if you're doing a drawing that involves you as a little kid, just know that as a drawing, it's not going to read because they're not going to really know it's you. And if they do know it's you, because if they draw it enough to look like you, it's not going to look like a little kid. And if they draw it enough to look like a little kid, it's not going to look like you. So if you want to do something involving you as a little kid, you kind of have to get a picture of you as a little kid. That's one lesson I learned.
The order and stuff, I just had like a list of notes, and I fucked it up when I was originally talking about your album. I'd had artwork above it, and I just like skipped over it. So that's
I'm joking, man.
I know. I'm saying that's my fuck up. Like I try to like, because I can get sidetracked like really easily, really quick.
Well, here's the thing. If you would have just never said you're going out of order, I don't think anyone would have noticed because typically, you know, no one would have been like, hey, album work, that's out of order.
Yeah, I know.
So, you know, that's, you know.
This whole chord is out of order. I think out loud a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Or I could be like, oh, like, well, what are you doing? Or what are you doing? Is there anything you need to plug, sir?
Yeah, I do. I'm doing a new solo show. You know, it's not traditional stand-up. It's funny, but it's a narrative. And I'm doing it on Zoom. I did it for the first time the other night. It went well, and I'm doing it again on Saturday, December 19th at 8 p.m. Eastern on Zoom, and it's free. So, you know, if you want to get it, go to my Instagram, and the link is in my bio. My Instagram is at Raanan Comedy. That's RAANAN Comedy. Go on there, and you can get a link to my show. It's free. It's on Zoom. Yeah, it's gonna be a fun show. Couple weeks.
Of course, yeah, your album is available wherever you can stream, purchase, download, yada, yada. Yeah. You know, my album is available on, you know, iTunes, Spotify, all of them, you know, downhill ever since. Yeah, go listen to it. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. This was fun.
Oh, thank you, man. Yeah, thanks a lot.
Later.
Take care.
Please follow the podcast on all social media at Life's a Bit Pod. If you're listening, please rate and write a review. If you're watching, please like, comment, and subscribe. New episodes every Friday. And remember, it's okay to laugh.